Welcome to Telo Talks, where we bring you inside our network of amazing people. Luminaries we rely on every day to inform us on technology, automotive history, engineering best practices, and more. All so we can build an epic company and deliver an amazing truck to you. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you for having me. I hope I can tell people, decades from now, I was there in Telo's garage, like Edison's garage, like the first Ford's garage.
Absolutely. I hope you can tell people that. And we just want to flip the script a little bit and ask you some advice or some anecdotes from all of your experience traveling around the world, visiting all sorts of people focusing on climate change and improvements. How do you get better at storytelling? How does the technologist that builds these amazing solutions talk to people about adopting it?
Well, it sounds like, from what you guys tell me, you already did a huge first step, which is you listen. You went out and asked people, what do you need? Like, what's your story? I think the key to solving our democracy and saving our planet begins with neighbors leaning across the fence and going, hey man, what's your story? Let me understand what forms your worldview. You ask people, what do you need? Well, we need a small functional electric truck in a way that the current story of our culture and isn't serving us, That's a great place to start. And I would just follow that instinct. It sounds like you're there. And it's hard for us to even comprehend because we adapt to things so fast. It's our great strength and weakness as a species, Like our phone is so cool when we get out, but by the time we get it home, it's been made obsolete by the next one, and we adapt to that in perverse ways too. There isn't as much sea life on this beach as there was when I was a kid. Oh well, how do you convey that, right? We adapt to these things. But right now what we're going through, the idea that our entire revolutions in industry and manufacturing and construction and mobility and food supplies will be changing in my kids' lifetime as much as they changed from going back to my great-grandparents. Both terrifying and exciting. But what moves people? Maybe all the emotions, I say use everything in the toolkit. Tug at their heartstrings and know that you're going to fill their safety needs because you've met those design parameters, you've passed those tests. I always grew up buying vehicles trying to fill my love and esteem needs at the top of the pyramid. Just based purely on the way they looked. I had my dream car, a 1962 Corvette I made as a model when I was a kid, and finally was able to buy one. And it was cool driving, you imagine the looks you get, right? But I smelled like a gas station. The thing was constantly breaking down. It was, engineered for a different time and earth. And I appreciated having it. Now I think I have 4,000 miles on a city bike. Most of them the new EV bikes that they've made so convenient. And that was less about me deciding I wanted to be Captain Planet. It was more my surroundings nudged me into that. New York City has amazing bike trails. The city bike program is so convenient. And before you know it, I've gone 4,000 miles on these things. And I think the more people appreciate the benefits of EVs, you just have to experience it. It'll spread like a virus.
Maybe you get the people that are still in that gas guzzler, or they still cook with gas. They're really wedded to the idea that this is the best way. I don't want to change. What's a great way to talk to across the aisle, essentially?
I think you have to be empathetic that we are just the products of the stories we grew up with, And the one I love to joke about is I was convinced that to show somebody that you really love them, you spend 3 months' salary on a diamond, because diamonds are forever and they're super precious and rare. They're not. Diamonds are just carbon. They're everywhere. It rains diamonds on other planets. The rarest substance we know in the universe is a tree, is wood, because we live on the only planet that has them, right? But you'd go try posing to somebody with a wooden engagement ring and see how that goes, because the story is so powerful. And so the story about cooking with gas was deliberately sold to us as a superior way to flavor your food somehow. When I think our grandkids are going to say, wait, you had a box of flammable toxic gas in your house, that you use to make food, and the way we go, wait, you burned whales for light? It's every generation has its new revolution. We're in the middle of a seismic one that people are just figuring out. So people have to maybe have an induction stove next to the gas stove for a year to figure out, wow, okay, then suddenly I'm not cooking with that one anymore. I've seen on EVs, there was a lot of anxiety in Florida. Well, what happens if your grid goes out after a hurricane and you can't charge your car? Because you'd say the advantages of not having to wait in a gas line. I've been in so many hurricanes where that is the week-long Sisyphean task of just like finding gas. And to interview people in Babcock Ranch, who the first solar village in Florida that survived Hurricane Ian, and they didn't have to worry about their cars could have been backup generation for folks who were blacked out by the storm. Until people field test that, you don't know. Until Babcock Ranch took on that hurricane and survived with solar power and buried lines and just smart engineering, people didn't imagine that. Well, now the line to get a house in there is extended for years, right? And we don't have to imagine a better future. You know, Dr. King, we remember him obviously for calling out the nightmares, but we remember him best for saying, I had a dream. And we don't talk enough about the dream of what a decarbonized world could provide.
I love the example of Babcock Ranch. When you have these really concrete examples in the world that are working so well, any thoughts on like how to, you know, amplify that story, or, you know, how come we don't have a million Babcock Ranches like getting built in Florida now? Or
the problem is that folks are a little bit resistant to change. There's a lot of change in the world that's happening regardless of our best intentions. And we've been so divided politically for very deliberate reasons, for profit, for status quo, that somebody's going to fight that shift. And Babcock Ranch almost didn't get built. It took Sid Kitson 10 years to get past fossil fuel interests who didn't want a solar village built. And so they tried to block it. And then at the very end, big nature conservancy who just didn't want to see a slice of that ecosystem taken away at that scale. And so from both the left and the right, he had to force people to think in a new way. And I don't know that you fix climate change without some sort of culture change, or just how we think about how we move, eat, build, do commerce. We're pretty good at that. You know, the one thing Americans are really good at is buying cool new stuff at blistering speed. Once people get on that S-curve, you know, whether it's a refrigerator, color TV, or now a heat pump, or now, you know, electrifying everything. But it's also just thinking about energy in a different way that I always took for granted growing up because it was so abundant and cheap, right? And you didn't know about the hidden costs. But I just came across this company now where they sell cook stoves or barbecues that you use wood as your fuel, as you would, as I love to do when I'm backpacking. But it has a converter you can plug your phone and charge it up just using the heat generated by a fire I was just making coffee with anyway, or was using to grill, you know, your barbecue. Like that's a light switch of, wow, I've been wasting all that heat. I could have been charging stuff, you know? Maybe I'm just a nerdy dad, but I think that's cool to think about it in those terms. And then once you can bank power and move it around in a new way, not in flammable liquid form, imagine the possibility.
Well, I love the kind of story of hope that you promote, of like all of the great, essentially the wonders and the climate pioneers that are out there doing this. Your promotion of creating hope as opposed to focusing on on all the issues, because there are a lot of issues to focus on, is a great way to try to cross over.
Well, brother, I think it's thank you. It's the full scope of human existence. You know, I mean, some days it's a very sad story, and some days we should grieve. But there's so much worth saving, and there's so many cool ideas. And people are just now sort of cross-pollinating these ideas and discovering entire new sectors people aren't even talking about. Future billionaires walking around out here doing things that we haven't even discovered yet, you know, because we're so capable of a better way.
It's very cool. Well, Thank you so much for sitting down.
I hope this is okay
with me. It's wonderful, and you know, we get a lot of really interesting people coming through to see our product, and we just wanted to start hearing a little bit more what they're bringing to the world as well.
And vice versa. I love, you know, meeting people who are trying to solve big problems, especially at this stage. So Godspeed, you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
All right.
Bill.
You bet.
Thank you.